The median price of houses sold in Guilford in July jumped to 876,000. That's up more than 28% from the previous month. But before anybody concludes that Guilford's home value somehow went up 28% in only 30 days, there's a little more to the story. I'm Frank DiCrescenzo with Calcani Real Estate, and this is your Connecticut Housing Update, where we look at what's happening in the local housing market right now, and more importantly, what those numbers actually mean if you're trying to buy here. This week, we're looking at Guilford, Connecticut. Let's start with inventory. Guilford had 2.42 months of housing inventory in July. It's actually down about 9% from June and more than 19% from a year ago at this time. So despite having a little more inventory than some of the other New Haven County markets that we've looked at recently, Guilford is still firmly on the seller side of the market. And inventory moving down rather than up means buyers haven't suddenly gained an upper hand here. Now let's look at what buyers are actually seeing for sale. The median asking price of active listings was $725,000 in July. Interestingly, that's down about 9% from June. Guilford is clearly a higher priced market, but remember that a median isn't the minimum. Half of the active inventory falls on either side of that number. So this doesn't mean that you need $725,000 just to start shopping in Guilford. Now here's where we start seeing what buyers are actually choosing. Homes newly going under contract had a median asking price of $720,000. That is close and almost identical to the $725,000 median of the active inventory. So unlike the Brantford video we did last week, where we saw a pretty noticeable difference between active asking price and where some buyer activity was occurring, Guilford's July numbers line up much more closely with each other. The median asking price of all homes sitting pending at the end of July was higher at $769,900. But again, 1 month of data is only a snapshot. I'm much more interested in how those numbers actually work together. And now we get to the number that's probably jumping off at you at the screen. The median sold price in July was $876,000. That's up more than 28% from June. So does that mean that Guilford homes appreciated 20% in 1 month? Absolutely not. That's why we don't look at one number, one statistic, without putting it into context. Median sold price depends on which home actually sold during that particular month. If more expensive homes sold in July rather than in June, the median can jump, even though the value of the house right down the street didn't suddenly increase 28%, although it can affect it. And the report itself that we rely on gives us some support for being cautious about this. The separate public record measure puts July's median sold price at $820,000, which is also substantially higher than June, but much lower than the MLS-derived $876 figure. Here's a number that tells us that the buyer competition hasn't disappeared. Guilford homes sold at an average of 102.6% of their asking price. In other words, the average sale was still closing above the listing price. Buyers are still competing. That doesn't mean you should automatically offer 2.6% over the asking price just to match that 102.6. It means that well-positioned properties are still attracting enough demand that buyers need to understand the competition on the particular house they're looking at. Now here's the strange-looking part of the July's market. Median time on market increased about 30% to 43 days, so homes took longer to sell while inventory decreased, and homes were still selling above asking. Those numbers may seem contradictory, but they aren't. They're telling us that not every Guilford property is experiencing the same market. That's your market takeaway this week. A desirable new listing that's priced correctly can still generate competition. Here's how I'd read Guilford right now. Inventory remains tight at 2.42 months. Buyers are still paying above asking on average at 102.6 of the list price. Homes are taking longer to sell at a median of 43 days. And yes, the median sold price jumped to $876,000. But don't mistake a 1 month change in the mix of homes sold for a 28% increase in the value of every house in Guilford. If you're buying in Guilford right now, I'd pay less attention to whether somebody tells you it's a buyer's market or a seller's market or anything else, and pay more attention to what's happening to the specific property that you're considering putting an offer on. How long has it been listed? Has the price changed? What's actually comparable? And is there competition on that house? Those questions can matter a lot more than what the town-wide average is. I'm Frank DiCrescenzo with Calcani Real Estate, If you're considering Guilford, New Haven County, or any other surrounding area and you'd like some help figuring out what your options are, you'll find my contact information below. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can see all the episodes of Connecticut Housing Update. Next week, we're going to take a look at Durham, Connecticut. And if there's a specific town you'd like to see me cover, please leave it in the comments below.